Shohei Ohtani got surgery on his shoulder and why it's not as bad as we may think. And could Roki Sasaki really be coming to the Dodgers? Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. This is the daily podcast covering the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers, and you can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day, which can be made easier by subscribing and get notified when our episodes are ready or when we're going live like we are here on Tuesday night. If this is your first time listening, watching, welcome. I'm Vince Amperio. That's Jeff Snyder, and we are both lifelong Dodger fans that have covered the team for a decade now in a few different capacities, being around the team, being in the locker room, being in the press box, talking to the players, all that type of stuff. We've also talked about the Dodgers on this here podcast for 6 seasons now. We've had a Dodger podcast longer than that. So we're well-versed in the Dodgers, and no matter how long you've been a Dodger fan, no matter how well-versed you are on the Dodgers, Jeff, I think it's still, I saw you, it makes you smile every time you hear World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers.
It really does. It's my favorite thing, and I look forward to saying it for at least a year, and hopefully we can start year 2 next October. And Elisheva points out in the chat that this is her first time seeing me without a hat, and I don't even have my glasses on because I didn't bring my non-glary camera with me. I am at my grandmother-in-law's apartment with her, and so I am remote, and I didn't bring a Dodger hat with me because when I came over here this morning, I didn't realize I would still be here tonight, and so that's why I'm doing it with hair. I have had people say in the past that when they first saw me without a hat on, they had just always assumed I was bald, and that's why I always wear a hat, but I got hair up here, so same old me, just look a little different, but still here to talk Dodgers. I mean, world champion Dodgers.
Yeah, we appreciate everyone here live with us on Tuesday night. I know there's something else going on in the country, but why not talk about the Dodgers for a little 30-minute break? And that's what we're here to do. And it starts off with, I guess, not the best news, but not the worst news. Shohei Ohtani was announced that he underwent surgery to repair a labrum tear in that left shoulder that he dislocated in Game 2 of the World Series. Whether the Dodgers knew about the labrum tear that night or at some point, I would imagine they knew about it, but just didn't want to reveal it, which they don't have to. It's not like the NFL where you have to put out, an injury report or anything like that. So Ohtani dealt with it. I would imagine the last 3 games of the series, it probably is why that he didn't have maybe as much success offensively as he could have if he didn't have a tear in his labrum in that left shoulder. But all in all, it said that he still should be ready for spring training. It shouldn't hopefully affect his pitching too much as it's not his non-throwing arm. But obviously with any shoulder surgery, you do worry a little bit about what could happen. But, Ohtani's proven to be a little bit different than some other guys.
Yeah, for sure. The things we know, his shoulder injury wasn't as severe as Cody Bellinger's. Also, it's on his left arm, which is his back arm, not his pulling arm on the swing, which is good news. And it's not really a surprise that the Dodgers knew about this and kept it a secret. We found out just a few days ago that the Dodgers kept an entire injury of Freddie Freeman's secret and totally basically playing decoy. It's fun that Shohei Ohtani was a decoy. They needed the threat of his bat in the lineup. And so the best approach for the Dodgers was say Shohei's fine to play, put him out there batting leadoff, and okay, he had a couple bad games. That happens sometimes. And the threat of Shohei, I think, did its job when you go up there and they didn't. It's not like they would have been better off saying, okay, we're going to put Chris Taylor at DH instead. That's having Shohei Ohtani there. There's a chance he's going to walk. There's a chance he's going to, I think just having Ohtani up there, the catcher's interference that led to Mookie's sac fly was, not that Ohtani caused that, but the catcher trying to steal every strike possible because it's Ohtani and everything. Having him in the lineup is a good thing. And so I wasn't really surprised to learn that there was structural damage. Obviously, he had imaging, I assume an MRI after, the day after the injury. And, not surprised that there was damage. But it's one of those things where, like was said at the time, it's a pain tolerance thing. Even if there is damage, we knew there was a potential for either the labrum or the rotator cuff to be injured with that kind of injury. But it came down to pain tolerance. It's not like he was going to hurt it worse or need more surgery. They knew he needed surgery. So play and then get the surgery when it's time.
Yeah. And then, shout out to the Dodgers because it was only 3 more games that Ohtani had to go through, having that hurt shoulder. So all in all, he still reached base. He, still was, like you said, an active threat at the plate. I mean, even with one arm, Ohtani's probably more of an active threat than some other guys that not just on the Dodger roster, but on a lot of teams' rosters. So, ultimately it all worked out. You figured Ohtani shoulder was really bugging him the way he had to keep holding it, even when he was on base, the way, his swing just looked not as sharp as it had. I mean, not like he was tearing it up in the postseason, but the threat of him coming through wasn't as strong as it was in earlier games. But either way, like I said, it was more than enough at the top of that order and more than enough for the Dodgers. And, we just assume and hope that the recovery goes well. Like I said, the fact that it's not the front shoulder for him swinging, the fact that it's not his throwing shoulder shouldn't affect too much. And, I see people trying to compare it to Cody Bellinger and saying, Bellinger's swing never got right. Cody Bellinger's swing was never really right before. It was right a lot of the time in 2019, but other than that, it wasn't really that right. And his was a lot more mechanical than Ohtani's, which I would imagine he has no trouble getting back to.
Yeah, absolutely. Cody Bellinger in 2020, so the regular season before he hurt his arm, he had a 239 batting average, 789 OPS. Not nearly the MVP season he had the year before. It's totally different. Apples and oranges for sure. Even, subluxations and dislocations. They literally 2 different injuries. Bellinger's is much more severe. And the fact that we did see Ohtani running the bases, looking awkward, holding his jersey a few times, that means he was on base a few times after the injury, which means almost by definition, he was better than whoever they would have replaced him with.
Yeah, definitely. So, we wish him well in his recovery. The Dodgers have had, a few surgeries obviously during the season, now a couple surgeries here in the postseason, but, everything looks right for next year in terms of the guys that they know are going to be right for next year. But one guy that I guess could be on the Dodgers now next year is Roki Sasaki, and we got some news that, he may get posted after all. So we're going to talk about that and why the Dodgers are the front runners. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle all the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. And the FanDuel Sportsbook app is where all the magic happens. It gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. And it also allows you to check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more. In case you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can see if that hunch matches some of the numbers and place your bets all there on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Just go to FanDuel.com to join today. And remember, you get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So, put something down on a heavy favorite in the NFL this weekend. $5, boom, $150 as long as there's not a huge upset. All you got to do is go to FanDuel.com to get started. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers one of the listens of your day. First listen of the day, last listen of the day, second listen of the day, fourth listen of the day. As long as we're one of your listens, we appreciate you. For first your first or last listen, that means you're either listening to us in the morning or you're listening to us as we go live most nights. So we appreciate you. Good turnout here on Tuesday night. I have a celebrity in the building with me. Alfonso points out, is Matt Damon here with me, and I can assure you that it's not Matt Damon because Matt Damon's not a Dodger fan. But if he was a Dodger fan, yeah, that could be him right here next to me. So
absolutely. It's the only difference between me and Matt Damon, for sure. What team we root for.
Yeah. All right, Jeff. So you can remember, check out Locked On Sports Today, Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world. There's a lot of other sports going on right now, but all we care about is the Dodgers right here on Locked On Dodgers. And that's what we're going to talk about because Roki Sasaki, Kylie McDaniel of ESPN reported that looks like Roki may get posted by his team and that the Dodgers would be the favorites. Ken Rosenthal reported the day before that if Roki did get posted, the Dodgers would be the overwhelming favorites. When it comes down to getting posted early like Sasaki would, it essentially makes it the guy can kind of pick where he wants to go. The fact that a lot of teams maybe didn't know or didn't plan on Sasaki being posted means that the Dodgers do have a little bit of a monetary advantage here, as they do have international bonus pool money. I think the most or second most of all the teams out there. But Jeff, I mean, you got to imagine, even though there was a couple little notes in one of Kylie's blurbs saying that maybe Roki Sasaki could want a smaller market team or, could be dealing with injury or whatever, blah, blah, blah. I got to imagine none of that's going to stop the Dodgers from saying, here's all our international bonus pool money, and you can come play with Yamamoto, Ohtani, and the World Series champions.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason that it's still maybe a little unlikely that he will be posted is because his Japanese team would be missing out on a lot of money because they get a percentage of what he signs for as a posting fee. And like you said, he is limited to international free agent bonus pool money, which the Dodgers do have the most, actually by quite a bit over the next highest team. But really, it's the difference between, it's tens of millions of dollars that his Japanese team won't be getting. But the flip side is he wants to be posted, and they're not going to get that money unless they wait 2 more years to post him. And, having him unhappy, having him, a lot of ways he has some leverage to force their hand and basically say, look, get something or get nothing. He's got some leverage there. And it does seem like everybody kind of agrees the Dodgers are the most likely place for him to land. He just turned 23 2 days ago. He's exactly 3 years older than my daughter, which is crazy. And he throws 100 miles an hour. He has a wicked splitter, just great stuff, and young. And obviously the Japanese connection, everything about the Dodgers makes sense for him, for the money, the endorsement opportunities, everything about it. It just makes a ton of sense. And, we've talked a lot about how the Dodgers seem like they might do a 6-man rotation next year. I think Sasaki would make it even more likely because if you've got Ohtani and Yamamoto and Sasaki in the rotation, that's 3 guys who have pitched in Japan and are kind of used to that every 6th day instead of every 5th day. That 6-man rotation makes a ton of sense, especially when you factor in all the injured pitchers the Dodgers have coming back, the fact that they're probably going to go after, a big name free agent like Corbin Burns or Blake Snell or Max Fried, or, maybe Walker Buehler's coming back. There's so many potential starting pitchers that 6-man rotation makes a lot of sense, which again, like that's another check in favor of the Dodgers for Sasaki, because for a lot of teams, a 6-man rotation doesn't make sense. And so they would have to work things around him. And like the Angels worked around Ohtani, but that was different because he was providing value on both sides of the ball. But Ohtani really is an interesting comp here because Ohtani came over when he was young. He was posted by his team, came over through the international free agent system, and the same thing. His team missed out on a lot of money from the posting fee, but they did what they had to do because he had the leverage. And that's why the Angels got him for so cheap. And at the time that it was shortly after the Angels signed him, then a report came out that he had an issue with his shoulder. And there were people saying, well, 30 teams still wanted him, so it can't be that bad. And the point I made at the time was the cost is so low. The fact that 30 teams were in on him doesn't really tell you anything because, it's like it's an international free agent. It's just a couple $1 million of bonus money. And then you're paying him the league minimum for at least 2 years. And so you could have a guy who literally needs Tommy John surgery right now, and it would be worth it. It was kind of like when they drafted Walker Buehler. It's kind of the same thing, the same mindset. And so, Sasaki, his velocity was down a little bit this year. There are indications that maybe he's not at the peak of health, but he was still really, really good. And so with what he would cost, he makes so much sense. And the other thing that I hadn't even really thought about until today was that he also doesn't affect the roster crunch because he would be a minor league signing. He doesn't have to be added to the 40-man roster until they're breaking camp until they're ready to put him in the big leagues. And so, all this stuff about the off season and the roster crunch and everything. And like we talked about yesterday, maybe that's why Kershaw declined his option so that they could have that roster spot to play with. Sasaki wouldn't take one of those roster spots either. They could add him at some point after the 60-day injured list opens up in spring training, and they can clear up some spots. So just like if Sasaki is posted, everything seems to line up to say he's coming to the Dodgers.
Yeah, and if you're not familiar with Roki Sasaki, he pitched on the World Baseball Classic. He's been pitching in the league over in Japan since he was 19. And I'll just kind of run through some of the numbers. As a 19-year-old in 2021, he started 16 games, had a 1.84 ERA. And then if in 2022, he had a 2.02 ERA in 20 games. With 2 complete games. In 2023, a 1.78 ERA in 15 games. In 2024, a 2.35 ERA in 18 games. Obviously, the innings, the most he's ever thrown in a year is 129, but with the Dodgers going to a 6-man rotation, realistically, if they got him, he's going to make 20 to 22 starts, and, innings wouldn't be an issue. Like you mentioned, the fact that if he does come with injury or is some caution, realistically, that for $2 million, you're going to take that chance. And, even if it was, okay, we signed him and now he's getting Tommy John or some surgery, it doesn't really matter for it. So ultimately, it makes sense for the Dodgers. It makes sense for Sasaki to, choose the Dodgers, especially if it's the most money and you get to go to the Dodgers. Like, I don't see a reason why that wouldn't be your first choice. I saw one of the articles estimated that he could get, upwards of 30-40 million in endorsements if he did come to Los Angeles. And, that's where you make up that money that you're not making. Yamamoto just signed for big money, but he waited the extra couple years. Sasaki wouldn't, but, he would make it up in that endorsement money and, get into the league faster and get into, in theory, free agency faster too, if he ends up not signing some type of extension or something. So until he's posted, it's hard to, really get too excited. But if he does get posted, then the excitement would get real because, again, unless barring some big thing that we missed or some pivot on his end or just a report, like we said with Ohtani, like the reports that come from his camp or not even from his camp, the reports that come out about Ohtani or any of the guys from Japan, you don't know how much to trust it because you don't know how close they're letting people, especially American reporters, get close to them. So it could be, all just hearsay and whatnot. But again, it just seems like it makes logical sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love it. Like he is so high on my list because he makes so much sense as far as money and roster. It's like a bonus move. It's, hey, we can still do everything else we plan on doing this offseason plus Sasaki. And that's what I like about it. Like when we eventually talk about Juan Soto, it's like, okay, if you do Soto, you can't do this and this and this, or at least it's hard to do these things. If you do Corbin Burns, you lose this flexibility. If you do, all those people who, I'd love to have on the Dodgers, you lose flexibility. Sasaki, no flexibility lost, just only upside. And that's, I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. So we shall see. We will. I don't remember if there's a date yet that he has to be posted by.
There's not, except that this, I think the international signing period ends at the end of the year, and then it's closed for 2 weeks, and next year starts up January 15th. And so he would need to be signed before then. And so he needs to be posted. They have a month or so to sign. So I think that he'd need to be posted in the next couple of weeks to realistically make the whole thing work.
Yeah, so we shall see. But we talked a little bit about Dave Roberts being on Mookie Betts' podcast yesterday. There was a couple other things that we wanted to keep the discussion going about, or at least agree with Dave Roberts in maybe one case. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Hims. Your sex life is important, but your schedule can be busy. You don't have time to go to a doctor's office to get treated for ED, but through Hims, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor visits. And you get access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments like chewable hard mints and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and the medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance needed. One low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the ED option that works for you. So start your free online visit today at hims.com/locked-on. That's HIMS.com/locked-on for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/locked-on. The products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with the healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. Today's episode is also brought to you by Arena Club. The Arena Club Slab Pack drop is coming. And if you're one of those that likes to collect cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on a Luka Ellie or Mahomes rookie card just isn't in the cards if you love collecting. But that's a lot of money to drop. But slab packs from arenaclub.com are here, and it's now possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Every card that I just mentioned hit from last week's Arena Club Slab Pack drop, and it's the only place where Repack provides a real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. You can check out the slab packs that revolutionize the repack game with their transparency. Everyone likes transparency because after your pulls are revealed, they'll need to be placed in your showroom for safekeeping, selling, trading, or auction. And the grading process for Arena Club is accurate, fast, and once again, transparent. The full grade rationale provided an explanation of how your card was scored. Whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying, Arena Club is the card collecting platform you have to check out. And right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/lockedonmlb and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's arenaclub.com/lockedonmlb, code LOCKEDONMLB for 10% off your first purchase. I want to thank you for being an everydayer. If you are one, we appreciate you. An everydayer is just someone that listens or watches every day. It's a lot easier to do in the regular season. It may not be as easy to do in the off season. So that's why we appreciate you. If you continue to listen every day throughout the off season, there's a lot to get into. There's still some World Series and playoff stuff we probably can talk about. There's definitely a lot of free agency stuff to talk about. There's a lot of things to still get into that's going to take us through the end of the year. So make sure to stay in every day or listen to Locked On Dodgers. Remember, you go beyond the podcast, become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Get text directly from us with any updates, like the Ohtani surgery news. You would have known that pretty quickly after it was announced because you would have got a text directly to your phone. So go check that out. And Jeff, Dave Roberts was on Mookie Betts' podcast On Base, and we talked a little bit about him saying he may be managing a little bit different when specific to the training angle. And, we thought, he did manage different this postseason, but maybe that wasn't the best example of that just because it was a little bit up against the wall there. But there's a couple other things he mentioned, and one that we probably agree about, one that I think people aren't taking in the right context of how Roberts meant it. But we'll start with the first ones. Dave Roberts saying from his perspective, the Padres series felt like the World Series. He mentioned that he believed the Padres were the best team 1 through 26 in terms of, number 1 on the roster, number 26 on the roster. Mookie Betts agreed with him. And, we talked about this a little bit in the moment against the Padres and definitely, after the fact, maybe not as much. But, yeah, it did feel like the Padres were the best overall team the Dodgers played. And the only series, more so because it was a short series, where they didn't have the luxury of maybe, quote unquote, punting a game.
Yeah, it's I absolutely believe that the Dodgers and Padres were the 2 best teams in baseball this year, and especially at that point. The Padres struggled earlier in the season, but where they were at, and you can make a case that the Mets were hot and the Tigers were hot, but like all of that was kind of a mirage. And what the Dodgers and Padres were, they were the 2 best teams, and it's a bummer that they had to play in the first round or the second round for the Padres, but the first round for the Dodgers, the NLDS. And yeah, like I said, I never said it on this podcast because I didn't want to, I'm not superstitious, but I'm a little stitious, as Michael Scott said. And so I didn't want to say it. I did say it to my brother on the phone. I firmly believed that whoever won the NLDS was going to win the World Series. And I still believe that was the case. I think if the Padres had beat the Dodgers, they would have won the World Series. And, in a way, that's why I think it's so silly. Like when people talk about, if the Dodgers had lost to the Padres, Dave Roberts would have been fired. Like, it's when you have to play the other best team in the first round, one of the 2 best teams has to lose, and that doesn't mean the manager was a failure. And we saw it today. The Padres extended Mike Schilt, they recognized that they lost to the best team in baseball, and they were probably the second best team in baseball. So it was, I don't have a problem giving the Padres that credit. I think it's fun that the Padres are a good team, that they will force the issue. I think that, there's things about the Padres that bug me. There's things about Padre fans that bug me, but that doesn't mean we can't admit that they are a really good baseball team.
Yeah. And, realistically, I think that makes it better because, you beat a team that won, that maybe some players thought their team on paper was better. Obviously, I don't think there was any Dodgers that were thinking, we're going to lose to the Padres. I did think, realistically, anyone could step back and say, what, maybe right now with the way our team isn't healthy, their team looks a little bit better. And Padre fans will say, Joe Musgrove got hurt. And then Dodger fans can counter with a lot of different things. So ultimately, it doesn't matter who's hurt, who's not. It ultimately comes down to who's playing at the moment. And at that time, the Dodgers were down 2-1. And, it was not looking great if you look back at previous postseasons. And it worked out for the Dodgers. They ended up winning. And, while there was stressful times the rest of the way, there was no stress like there was in that first series against the Padres. One, because, losing, I think even at this point, losing to the Padres would have been worse than losing to the Mets or the Yankees in the sense of, I guess if you're on social media. If you're not on social media, maybe not, but it definitely.
I think losing to a division opponent anytime, even if you're not on social media, it's worse. Like Diamondbacks aren't a rival at all, and yet last year sucked because they're in the division. So
yeah. All right. The other thing Dave Roberts mentioned, and wanted to talk a little bit about maybe people not losing what he meant, and Dave Roberts said that he said, I can admit this now, but I was scared to come back to Los Angeles for Game 6. And then that was the main quote. But if you kept listening, he did say he felt it wasn't because Yamamoto was on the mound. It wasn't because anything like that. He wasn't scared of the Yankees being a better team than the Dodgers or worried that the Dodgers couldn't win the one game. But Dave Roberts has firsthand experience of being in a series that was 3-0 and one team came back and won 4-3. He was obviously on the winning side, so a little bit different, but he does know that the momentum shifts. He says when you're down 3-0, you're free. You're carefree. You're just, trying to stick around another day. And when you get that second win, he said that's when kind of the momentum and the realism kind of shifts back to the other side of, okay, now the pressure's back on the team that was up 3-0 and now only up 3-2. And I think, momentum, pressure, all that type of stuff, people have different feelings about it. But, when you were up 3-0 and now it's 3-2 and now you're going back home and now, you're one slip up away from going to a game 7, it definitely is a lot different mindset and would have had, even though we would have been confident Yamamoto versus Rodon, again, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of like, are you familiar with the what was the host of Let's Make a Deal? I can't remember the name. It's a logic thing where
And Chuck.
No. Anyway, but if you got 3 doors and there's a prize behind one of them, and you choose a door, and then they show you what's behind one of the other doors, and then they say, "Do you want to switch your guess?" Mathematically, you always should, because the math has changed, and now you have a 50% chance instead of a 33% chance. It's kind of the same thing. For me, it's not a momentum thing. It's a math thing. It's when the Dodgers are up 3-0, they know all we have to do is win one of the next 4. And then they lost game 4. Now we have to win one of the next 3. It's still greatly in your favor. And as we saw, it worked out. The math worked out. The Dodgers won one of those next 4 in only 2 games. But then if they lose that one, the math changes again. Now we have to win one of the next 2. Still, you like your chances. But then if you lose game 6, then the math changes. We have to win today. And so for me, that was the scary part, because the math changes every time. Yes, it's hard to win 4 straight games, but it's not hard to win 1 game in a row 4 times. It's still, the odds are against it, but the odds get more and more in favor of it each time you win that 1 game. And luckily the Yankees only won that 1 game 1 time. And so I think, deep down inside, that's probably what Dave Roberts was thinking, that like the math changes every time you lose a game and gets less and less in your favor.
Yeah, it's a lot different being up 3-0 than being up 3-2, because 3-2, no matter, even if it's 3-0 and then 3-2, if it was 2-0 and then 3-2, like there's a lot of different ways it could have went. The Dodgers could have won the first 2, lost 2, and then won the last one, and then you're going into game 6 feeling better. Like there's different ways. It's always going to be how you feel in the moment. But yeah, I ultimately, like I said, I don't think Dave Roberts, he wasn't scared of the Yankees or the Dodgers not being able to win. It was more so just based on the fact of, pressure, momentum, for whatever that's worth, plus, like you said, number wise, plus like if Yamamoto has a bad start, which you never know, then now you're in a game 7 where you definitely don't know what happens, and both sides are just gonna go full bore, and you could have seen a lot of weird things happen as we've seen happen in game 7s before. You look back at 2016 World Series and that game 7 with the Cubs and the at that time Indians, like a lot of crazy things happened in that game, and then there was a rain delay, and then apparently someone took their clothes off in the locker room and tried to inspire a team, and it all want to get to that point.
Was it Kike Hernandez?
Not in 2016.
Monty Hall is the host, the old host of Let's Make a Deal. If you don't want to talk about, Google Monty Hall problem, and it's a whole math logic problem thing that it's one of my favorite things to talk about. But anyway, there was another thing I was going to say that got lost, but that's okay. Yeah, Dodgers won the World Series. Have we mentioned that? Dodgers are the World Series champions?
Yeah.
And they will be for the next year.
Yeah, still feels good. And I don't think that's going to change for a long time. So, all right, Jeff, you got anything else before we get out?
No. Appreciate a lot of you hopping in here. I know there's other things going on. We don't talk politics here, other than to say, I hope you did your civic duty and voted. And you know what? That's all we're going to say about that. But mostly, we're glad that you took a break from the election results to hang out here with us and talk about the World Series champion Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yep, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to check out Locked On MLB, which is going on all off season. Check out Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 2 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network. Remember, you can subscribe and get notified when episodes are ready or when we're going live on YouTube. You can find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff's on Twitter as Night Dog. I'm at Vincent's91. You can DM us with any questions or comments. You can also Go beyond the podcast. Come on, Locked On Dodgers Insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. If you want to send us an email, you can send us an email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com. Or if you want to send us a voicemail or leave us a voicemail, send us a text, you can do so at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us when you get in your car or if you're at home. Cherish My Device Pay Podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.